Traveler, I'm grateful you've joined me tonight. This moment is yours to step fully into the story. Find a quiet place, let your body settle, allow your mind to follow the path that stretches before you. Notice the space around you, feel the support beneath you. Let any tension in your body dissolve into stillness. Take a deep breath and let your awareness widen, letting thoughts drift aside, letting the outside world fade. Tonight you are here for a journey, for discovery, for moments that exist only in this space, this time, this story. And if you subscribe, it truly helps me craft more journeys for your nights, bringing new worlds to you each week. Tonight is for curiosity, for questions that do not need answers yet, and for the thrill of stepping into the unknown. You will enter a town that does not feel like any other place you have known. Its streets bend and rise, turning in ways that confuse sense and direction. People move with purpose. Some glance at you directly. Some speak quickly to each other, their words carrying weight you cannot yet place. Buildings lean at angles that seem deliberate, and windows open onto spaces that do not align with the streets outside. At the town center stands a door unlike any you have seen, dark and tall, marked with symbols that feel ancient and intentional. The locals speak in serious tones. No one should open this door. Perhaps it is the only door you will ever open. Even at a distance, the door draws your attention, making your curiosity rise, challenging you to consider what lies beyond. Your steps toward it will reveal the town's secrets, the people who live here, and choices that might change everything. You arrive in the town without remembering how you came here. One moment you are moving through another place. The next you are standing in a street that feels neither familiar nor entirely strange. The ground beneath your feet is solid, yet the angles of the cobblestones seem off, as if the streets were drawn by someone who does not follow rules of measure. Buildings lean and stretch in ways that make you pause. Corners that appear near are suddenly far. Windows that should open onto walls instead reveal rooms that defy expectation. People move through the streets, each with a purpose that seems beyond explanation. Some notice you immediately, their eyes scanning briefly, then returning to their tasks, as though testing whether you belong or not. You begin to walk along a path that curves without pattern, footsteps measured against the irregular stone. A market appears on your left, stalls of goods arranged in sharp angles, jars of unknown contents, fabrics folded with impossible precision, objects you cannot name, yet feel compelled to observe. A vendor calls your attention. You should not go there. The door is not for the wandering. You do not understand entirely, but the words linger in your mind, carrying weight you cannot place. You continue along a narrow alley, walls pressed close, the air thicker, carrying hints of iron and something else you cannot name. Children pass you. Some glance quickly, some stop and point toward the town's center, where the door stands, dark and silent, unmoving, yet unmistakable. A few townsfolk watch from windows, heads tilting, lips moving in conversation. You cannot hear, yet the attention feels deliberate, calculated. You turn another corner and the square opens before you, wider than expected, the door standing at the center like a figure waiting. People gather nearby, not in crowd, but in clusters, moving with a pattern that seems rehearsed, as if every step is part of a protocol. One elder steps forward, eyes sharp, voice even. No one should touch it. Once opened, you may not return the same. Perhaps it is the only door you will ever open. You look at the door again, the symbols carved into its surface almost shifting, lines and shapes that feel alive to your perception. Your heart beats faster. Curiosity and caution collide. Yet you cannot look away, and so you stand watching, feeling the pull of the door, the weight of the town, the presence of people whose lives seem entwined with this place, waiting without decision, waiting as everything waits with you. The next steps you take will guide you deeper into the town, reveal the lives of those around you, and bring you closer to what lies behind the door. You stepped away from the square for a moment, moving along a side street that narrows between two leaning buildings. A group of people stand near a small fountain, their movements deliberate. They pass objects between each other in silence. Small metallic shapes that catch the light and disappear just as quickly. One of them notices you, pauses, then nods toward the square, toward the door, as if acknowledging your presence, yet warning you at the same time. You continue walking, drawn by the door, but also by curiosity about the town, the people, their routines, the rules you cannot yet read. A narrow passage opens between two stalls, barely enough for you to step through. Inside, a small room filled with shelves, stacked with papers, jars, and objects you cannot name. A young woman appears from behind a shelf, her eyes sharp, voice quiet. Not everyone sees this place. Few notice the hidden corners. Few know the way to the door or why it exists. You ask her how she came to know. She shakes her head. It chooses who walks here, who notices, who follows without asking. The door is patient. The town is patient. Both are older than memory. She steps aside, gestures to a narrow corridor leading deeper into the town. Follow this, but watch the people. They are not what they seem, and they do not speak of the door lightly. You step forward, the corridor twisting sharply, walls covered in symbols similar to those on the door, some etched, some painted, others that seem to move slightly when you look away. A child runs past, carrying a bundle of papers, stops, glances at you, then disappears down another alley. The papers falling to the ground, shapes of letters and numbers you cannot read, yet they feel important, as if they hold instructions meant for someone. You pick up a single sheet. It bears a symbol, identical to one on the door, and suddenly you sense a connection, small but undeniable, a thread linking the people, the tent, the door. You follow the corridor as it bends sharply again, emerging into another street. A group of elders stand there, forming a loose semicircle, heads tilted toward the square, yet their eyes occasionally glance at you, measuring, testing. One steps forward, extends a hand, not toward you, toward the door, then pulls back slowly. Curiosity is natural, but the door demands preparation, patience, understanding, and perhaps a choice you cannot yet comprehend. You feel the weight of their words, heavier than any physical object, pressing against your awareness, urging you to observe, to learn, before you move closer. The street ends at a small plaza, a fountain with weir that runs upward, twisting in impossible streams, people around it moving in patterns that feel like a rhythm, a code. And there it is again, the door, tall, black, symbols etched deep into its surface. Watching, waiting, challenging, you step toward it, then pause, noticing for the first time the lull details in square, patterns in how people move, objects placed with purpose, and a sense that every element of this town exists to prepare or warn, or perhaps you realize that approaching the door is not simply an action. It is part of a sequence, a ritual of observation, understanding, and choices that have weight you cannot yet measure. And so you linger, studying the town, the people, the paths, the subtle arrangements, knowing that every step brings you closer to something you cannot yet see. You step back from the plaza and follow a narrow alley that curves sharply to the left. A small bell hangs over a doorway. It swings once and stops. A figure emerges, an old man with tools in his hands. He does not speak, only gestures for you to follow. Curious, you step inside. The room is filled with objects you cannot name. Small mechanical devices, shapes that shift when looked at from different angles, and papers scattered across a table, some marked with the same symbols as the door. The man points to one of the papers, then taps the door on the far wall. A door unlike any other you have seen here. Smaller, simple, yet something about it feels deliberate, essential. You move closer and notice a tiny keyhole, empty, no key in sight. The man shakes his head slowly, then motions toward the square, as if telling you that preparation, not force, is needed. Stepping back outside, you notice a small group gathered in a corner, speaking quietly. Gestures sharp, papers exchanged rapidly. You catch a glimpse of the symbol on one sheet, again identical to one on the forbidden door. A young boy runs past you carrying a bundle of books. One slips and lands at your feet. You pick it up, pages filled with maps of the town, streets bending in impossible angles, locations marked with the same symbols you have seen before. You follow one path marked in the book, leading to a stairway descending beneath the town. The air cools as you move downward, stone walls pressed close, the sounds of movement above muffled. At the bottom, a small chamber, faint light glows from cracks in the walls. You notice objects on the floor, metal shapes, fragments of paper, small tools, arranged in patterns that echo the town above. Someone moves in the corner, an older woman, her face lined, eyes sharp. She does not speak, and she gestures to a small mechanism on a pedestal. A puzzle of sorts, shapes that must be aligned. You spend moments studying it, matching angles, moving pieces. The mechanism clicks. The small pedestal rises slightly, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside a folded sheet of paper, another symbol, another hint, clutching it. You rise from the chamber, noticing how the stairway opens into an alley. The town above, alive with subtle motion. People moving, objects changing, papers. Everything deliberate, everything connected. Back in the square, your attention returns to the door, still tall, still dark, still silent. Yet the symbols now seem almost readable. The connections of the town, the papers, the objects, starting to make sense. You take a step closer, then another, aware now that approaching the door is not just curiosity. It is following a thread, a network of patterns, rules, and choices made long before you arrive. Every action of the townsfolk, every arrangement, every glance is part of the preparation, part of what will allow the door to be opened safely, or not at all. And so you stand again on the plaza, studying, watching, piecing together the town and its people, the objects and the symbols, knowing the moment of contact with the door will be more than just a touch. You remain in the square, eyes fixed on the door, yet something pulls your attention to a small platform near the fountain. An object sits on it, a box made of dark wood, edges carved with the same symbols as the door. A woman steps forward from the crowd, her movements deliberate. She stops beside the box, arms folded, eyes locked on you. She speaks finally, voice steady. To approach the door, you must first understand what it asks, and show that you notice what surrounds you. Choose carefully. The box is simple in appearance on closer inspection. Panels can slide, levers move, small pieces shift, a puzzle waiting to be solved. You kneel, studying it, turning pieces, testing patterns, trying to understand its logic. The crowd watches, silent but present, their attention almost tangible. After several attempts, a small panel clicks open. Inside, a folded sheet, another symbol matching those you have seen around town. The woman nods slightly, steps back, signaling that your action is noted, yet not complete. Two other figures emerge from the crowd, each holding an object, a vial filled with a dark liquid, a small metal sphere. They place them on the ground, equidistant from the box. These represent choices, consequences, paths. You may move forward only when you choose correctly. You examine objects, unsure, the symbols etched on each, the patterns they form on the ground. You realize they connect to the papers and objects you collected earlier. Following the lines and shapes in your mind, you reach toward the metal sphere, lift it carefully, and place it in a position that aligns with the symbols on the box and the square. A low vibration runs through the platform. The box clicks fully open inside. A key, small, heavy, marked with the same symbols as the door. The woman steps closer, voice calm but firm. You see, the door is not simply here. It watches, it waits, it tests. Every action matters, every choice is remembered. You take the key, feeling its weight, its presence confirming that you are ready, or at least closer than before. The crowd disperses slowly. People move back into their places, yet all eyes still watch, assessing, observing, guiding without interference. You turn toward the door again, key in hand, symbols on the wood now clearer, lines matching those you traced through the town, patterns forming a sequence. Every step you take feels deliberate, measured, and you realize that the door is not merely a barrier. It is a culmination of understanding, of observing, of interacting with the town and its people. You pause once more, absorbing the weight of what lies before you, knowing the next steps will bring you closer, and that each movement matters more than you have yet understood. You leave this small plaza behind and step onto the final stretch of the square. The key rests in your hand, its weight solid, its presence almost urging you forward. The cobblestones beneath your feet shift in subtle ways, slight rises and depressions you did not notice before, forming a path that seems intentional, a guide or a warning. You notice the townsfolk again, scattered, observing, some standing still, others moving slowly along the edges of the square, their eyes never leaving the door or you. A narrow corridor opens beside the door, barely wider than your shoulders. You hesitate, then step in. Inside, the walls are marked with lines, geometric shapes, patterns matching the symbols on the key, the box, and the objects you collected earlier. A small child steps from the shadows, holding a thin rod, points toward the wall, then quickly disappears, leaving only the sense that you must pay attention or risk missing something important. You follow the lines along the walls, noticing small details, scratches in the wood, marks on the stone, subtle changes in angle, a rhythm hidden in the structure itself. At the end of the corridor, the space opens slightly, a shallow basin in the center, filled with water that reflects the door in perfect alignment. A figure appears on the other side of the basin, a man with an object in his hand. He does not speak, instead gestures for you to place the key on a small pedestal beside the basin. You do so, and that key slides into the pedestal with a satisfying click. The door seems to respond, the symbols glowing faintly, lines across the wood shifting in ways you did not notice before. The man steps back, eyes assessing, then gestures toward the door, indicating that your approach is acknowledged, and the final step awaits. You move closer, the air changes, heavier, charged, the ground beneath your feet steady, the door looming larger than you expected. You notice carvings that were invisible before, shapes that seem to shift as you walk past them, symbols that connect in patterns along the frame. each one echoing choices you made, each one a record of observation, understanding, and attention to detail. A slight hesitation grips you, the realization that opening this door is not simply about action, but about alignment, about being ready. And yet, you continue forward step by step, each one measured, each one bringing you closer to what lies beyond, to what waits on the other side of the forbidden threshold. You stand before the door, the key in the pedestal at its side. Symbols crawl along the surface of the wood, shapes shifting as though alive, rearranging themselves based on your presence. The air feels thicker here, the space tighter, a weight pressing from the other side, not hostile, but expectant, demanding. You reach toward the door, fingertips hovering over the carved symbols, hesitant, aware that every touch matters. A click echoes from the pedestal, the key responding to your movement, as if confirming your readiness. You press your hand to the wood, feeling ridges and grooves, lines connecting to the key's shape. Small vibrations run along your fingers. The door resists, not solidly, but subtly. A pressure that pushes back against your curiosity, testing you, gauging your intent. You notice a small panel near the center, a mechanism you did not see before, shaped like the symbols from the box, the papers, and the basin. Sliding it carefully, the door hums, a deep tone, low, reverberating through the square outside, through the walls, through your chest. Narrow crack appears along the edge, revealing a faint light beyond, impossible to describe fully. Neither bright nor dark, shifting, moving, waiting. The townsfolk outside remain still, their eyes following your every movement. Some nod subtly, others shift position, guiding, without interfering. You adjust your hand, pressing firmly now, feeling heat where your fingers touch, symbols reacting to pressure, to presence. The crack widens slightly, a sound like metal scraping wood, slow, deliberate. The door yielding, but only incrementally. A faint scent rises from the gap, unfamiliar, sharp, carrying the sense of another space, ancient secret, alive in ways that are hard to comprehend. You pause, realizing that opening this door is more than a single act. It is a sequence, a rhythm, negotiation with the object itself, with the town, with the people who have prepared this moment. Your fingers trace the symbols, aligning them with the shapes from the key and the pedestal, the vibrations intensifying, a resonance that seems to echo through your mind. And for a time, you sense what lies beyond, shapes shifting, currents of air moving, hints of spaces, structures, and possibilities that exist beyond comprehension. The door yawns wider, a slit at first, enough for your eyes to peer into the unknown beyond. You crouch slightly, studying the edge, the way the symbols twist and move as though responding to your presence. A faint light spills from within, not bright, not dark, shift in patterns that make the walls inside seem to float. Stepping closer, you notice the air change, heavier in some places, lighter in others, currents brushing your skin, carrying scents that are hard to name, metal, earth, something older. You extend a hand, feeling door's edge, rough but deliberate, carved lines seeming to pulse beneath your fingers. The key in the pedestal vibrates subtly, confirming your alignment, and you realize it is not a simple lock. The key interacts with the door itself, with the space beyond, with your understanding. You take a deep breath, push lightly. The door moves with effort, then stops almost as if testing, judging your intent beyond the crack. Shapes shift, tall forms that bend and stretch, geometries that defy expectation, some floating, some fixed, moving in patterns that feel deliberate, waiting, observing. You notice a low hum, deeper than any sound you have heard in the town, felt more than heard, resonating through your chest, through your fingers touching the wood, through the stones underfoot. A sudden movement catches your eye, a figure crouched beyond the door, features impossible to discern clearly, watching, waiting, neither threatening nor inviting, simply present. The townsfolk outside do not move, their eyes tracking your progress. Some tilt their heads, some slightly, maintaining a rhythm you do not yet understand. You slide your hand along the door, adjusting the small panel you discovered before. Another click, a section near the top moves, revealing a narrow view into the space beyond. The forms beyond seem to align with symbols on the door, the objects you interacted with, the papers you collected, everything connected, everything part of the sequence leading here. A sudden draft brushes past your neck, the air carrying a sound, almost like voices, not words but tones, rising and falling as though something unseen is speaking in patterns you cannot yet decipher. You step closer, your shadow falling across the doorway, merging with the dark shapes within, aware that the door responds, not just to the key, but to presence, attention, the intent behind every motion. Your fingers grip the edge, press firmly, and the door moves again, wider this time. A narrow corridor revealed, walls lined with shapes and carvings, some moving subtly. When viewed from certain angles, you notice a series of small platforms, each one hold objects, similar to what you handled in the town. Small puzzles, mechanisms, each aligned with symbols from the papers you carried. A flicker of motion, a figure appears briefly at the far end, then disappears, leaving a sense of awareness, as if the space beyond is testing, measuring, waiting for you to move correctly. You step forward, 1 foot past the threshold, the door closing slightly behind you, a barrier of air, now separating the corridor from the town. The sounds outside muted, distant, as if you have entered another layer of reality entirely. Each step echoes, though not loudly, the corridor responding, vibrating, acknowledging, a rhythm that must be followed carefully. The objects on the platforms shift slightly as you approach, hinting at patterns you have not yet discerned, choices that must be made, sequences that must be understood. Your breath slows, your mind stretches, every sense alert, yet focused, knowing that every step, every touch, every observation matters now. And as you move deeper into the corridor, the shapes beyond the doorway shift, a hint light, a glimpse of forms that feel alive, waiting for interaction, ready to reveal or conceal, depending on the path you take. You step fully into the corridor, the door closing just enough behind you to create a sense of separation. The town outside now distant, muted, almost unreal. The walls are lined with small alcoves, each holding objects, some familiar from the town, some entirely new shapes you cannot name. Pieces of metal, shards of glass, folded papers marked with symbols. A faint pattern runs along the floor, lines that seem to connect the alcoves, linking objects, forming a path, a sequence. You kneel to examine one of the objects, a small cube, intricate carvings, sliding panels, tiny indentations. You test its mechanisms, pieces moving under your fingers, aligning shapes that match symbols from the papers and key. The cube clicks. A small drawer opens. Inside a thin sheet of translucent material, symbols etched across it, some matching the door, some unfamiliar, a new layer, a new puzzle. A low vibration runs through the corridor, felt beneath your feet, up your arms, confirming that interaction here has weight, significance, a response. You continue down the path, follow the lines on the floor, pausing at each alcove, testing objects, observing patterns, realizing that each step, each movement is part of a larger sequence, a rhythm to be learned. A sudden movement catches your eye, a figure standing partially hidden, its features obscured, watching silently, not blocking, not guiding, just observing. You glance at the alcoves again, noticing subtle changes, objects shifted slightly, positions altered, as if the figure's presence influences the space. At one alcove, a mechanism on a pedestal mirrors the one you encountered in the town, sliding panels, levers, shapes that must be aligned. You study it, aligning pieces according to the sequences you observed earlier. A click resonates, the pedestal rises, revealing a small object. Another key fragment, heavier than expected, with the same symbols as the door. You pick it up, aware now that multiple fragments must work together, that each step taken here matters as much as the approach to the door itself. Deeper into the corridor, the walls begin to change, lines and shapes shifting, symbols connect in ways that feel almost like language, almost like a map, guiding you forward. A narrow archway appears, leading into a chamber, faint light spilling from unseen sources, patterns on the floor, echoing those you traced through the corridor, objects on pedestals arranged with purpose. You step into the chamber, each footfall deliberate, aware that misalignment might reset sequences, that each observation is recorded in the space itself. In the center, a larger puzzle awaits, a panel of interlocking shapes, symbols matching those from the papers and cubes you collected, sliding pieces into alignment, testing your memory, your perception, your understanding. A figure steps forward, faintly visible in the chamber, gestures toward the panel, then recedes, letting you work observing without interference. Time arranging pieces, each move precise, patterns aligning, connections forming. The panel shifts, clicks into place, revealing a doorway within the chamber, small, precise, leading further inward. A faint light spills from it, shapes inside moving, alive, waveforms you cannot yet name. You pause, realizing that each layer of the corridor and chamber is preparing you, testing you, revealing more about the door, the space beyond, the world you have not yet entered fully. Every object, every symbol, every figure is part of sequence, a test, a guide, leading you closer to what lies beyond the forbidden door. And as you step toward the next doorway, a sense of anticipation settles, knowing that the choices you make now will shape what you encounter, and that nothing here is arbitrary, nothing wasted, everything deliberate, waiting without hurry. You push through the chamber doorway, stepping into a space that defies expectation. The ceiling curves impossibly high, patterns engraved across its surface, reflecting light from sources you cannot see. Shapes drift along the edges of the room, angular, geometric, some hovering, some grounded, all moving in ways that suggest purpose. The floor beneath you is uneven, tiles forming pathways that shift subtly underfoot, requiring careful steps, each movement precise, deliberate. At the center, a circular platform rests, etched with symbols that echo the door. The objects, the papers, the sequences you have followed. Hovering above it, suspended by unseen forces, is a sphere, metallic, etched with carvings you recognize. The key fragments you hold seem drawn toward it. As you approach, the sphere shifts, aligning with the symbols on the floor, moving slowly as though testing your timing. your awareness, your intent. You notice shadows flitting along the edges of the room, not threatening, but curious, observing your choices, the sequence of your movements. A pedestal rises from the platform, revealing a mechanism similar to what you faced in the corridor, yet larger, more complex, multiple layers, interlocking pieces. You kneel, arranging shapes, sliding panels, aligning symbols with patterns from memory, the sphere above responding to each correct adjustment. A faint vibration hums through the floor, resonating into your chest, the space alive, reacting, acknowledging. Objects on smaller pedestals rotate slightly, revealing new symbols, hidden fragments, more hints, each step revealing that the chamber itself is a living puzzle. You step carefully, following patterns that appear only when you move in harmony with the room. Sphere now hovering closer, pulsating subtly as if acknowledging your attention. Figures emerge from shadowed corners, watching silently. Gestures fleeting, hints of motion, the sense that the room is teaching, testing, revealing. A panel slides open in the platform compartment, revealing a crystal-like fragment, glowing faintly, etched with symbols that match the fragments you have collected. You take it, feeling its weight, the resonance through your fingers confirming that you are progressing, that the door beyond the corridor is within reach. The space stretches infinitely in all directions, perspectives bending, patterns repeating, yet new puzzles emerge, subtle, challenging, demanding focus. You move toward the far edge of the platform, the sphere aligning with the fragments you hold, the seek forming a pattern visible only when all pieces are correctly placed. At last, the sphere settles into position. A low hum vibrates through the room. The platform shifts, revealing another doorway, the first real glimpse beyond what the door guards. You pause, feeling a weight in the air, anticipation, the sense that the space is aware of your presence, measuring, waiting, preparing. You step into the next chamber, larger, wider than you imagined. The walls curve upward, twisting at angles that feel unnatural. Surfaces covered in symbols, some moving, aligning with the key fragments in your hands. A series of suspended platforms hover above the floor, connected by narrow walkways, some shifting slightly, testing balance, testing attention. You step forward onto the first platform. It rocks underfoot, responds to your weight, tilting slightly, then stabilizing. Across the chamber, a faint light reveals shapes hovering in the air, objects floating, rotating, some resembling tools, others abstract, all etched with symbols. You recognize fragments of sequences you have already encountered. You move carefully from platform to platform, tracing lines in the air, connecting symbols, arranging objects in patterns that feel right, though the full meaning escapes you. A figure appears on a distant platform, movements deliberate, gestures toward a small lever, the signal clear. You must interact with it, yet timing is uncertain. You step onto the next platform, adjusting weight, reaching for the lever, pressing it. A panel slides open in the wall of the chamber, revealing a small corridor, barely visible until activated. The suspended objects shift in response, realigning themselves, pulsing faintly. A sense of approval in movements, a rhythm emerging. The corridor ahead is narrow, walls lined with additional objects, small puzzles, mechanisms, each more complex than the last, requiring observation, dexterity, focus. You pause, studying a panel. Shapes must be rotated in precise sequence. Wrong alignment resets the mechanism. Objects shift back to initial positions. You focus, recalling patterns from the town, The corridor, the chamber, moving each piece with care. The panel clicks into place, revealing another symbol etched into the wall. A faint glow traces lines along the corridor, guiding your steps. Objects on pedestals, adjusting slightly, opening new paths. A subtle vibration runs along the floor. Your fingers brushing against one object confirms alignment. Another hum echoes through the chamber, this acknowledging your progress. You step carefully forward, aware that each movement matters. Every misstep could undo the sequence you've built, yet the sense of discovery pulls you onward. A shadow moves just at the corner of your vision, a figure, observing, almost imperceptible, disappears when you look directly, leaving the feeling that the chamber itself is alive. Guiding, testing, challenging. Further along, a large mechanism dominates the path, multiple layers, symbols interlocking, requiring combinations you have not yet seen. You study it, pieces matching sequences from the key, the fragments, the alcoves, arranging, testing, adjusting, feeling a resonance through the floor, through your hands, through your awareness. The final piece slides into place, the mechanism hums. A hidden doorway opens at the far end. A glimpse of the next space, brighter, more complex. The first hints of the world beyond the door in its full scale. You step toward it, aware that each choice has carried you here. Each observation, each interaction. The sequence continues. The door beyond waiting. A final threshold. The space opens around you, wider than any room you have passed through. Walls curve upward into angles that seem impossible. Surfaces covered in symbols and shapes that shift as you move, as though the space itself is aware of your presence. Platforms float at irregular heights, connected by narrow walkways. Some solid, some moving in patterns, testing your balance. Attention and timing. Objects hover in the air, each etched with fragments of symbols, some familiar, some new, all reacting subtly to your movements. A faint vibration rises beneath your feet, a rhythm emerging from the structure, guiding you, warning you, suggesting timing, sequence. From above, a figure descends onto a floating platform, cloaked, its features hidden, gestures toward a sequence of symbols glowing along the wall. A challenge, test of observation. You step carefully across a platform, adjusting weight to avoid misalignment. Your fingers brush an object suspended in air. A panel slides open in response, revealing another fragment, another clue. The figure moves silently, circling the platforms, each step deliberate, yet not threatening, its gestures precise, almost instructive. You reach a series of mechanisms, sliding panels, interlocking shapes, symbols aligning only when moved in a specific order. The vibrations confirming correct placements. Above you, shifts, illuminating sections of the walls previously hidden, revealing more patterns, paths, sequences to follow. You step onto a moving walkway, timing each movement with care, noticing shapes hovering just beyond reach, some shifting as you approach, others retreating, testing your perception. The cloaked figure gestures again, points toward a narrow archway at the far edge of the chamber, a sign that progress is allowed, but only if you choose correctly. A puzzle sits at the base of the arch, interlocking symbols, objects you collected throughout the journey. Cubes, fragments, papers, all must align to activate the pathway. You kneel, arranging each piece carefully, adjusting angles, recalling patterns from the previous chambers. The town, the corridor, the first steps before the door. Click, alignment complete. The archway pulses lightly, opening, revealing a glowing corridor beyond, filled with suspended shapes, flowing light, currents of air that seem almost alive. The cloaked figure steps back, motioning for you to continue, its presence still observing, silent guardian of sorts, or a guide. You cannot tell. You take a deep breath, step forward, feeling the weight of the journey, every object, puzzle and choice leading you here. The suspended shapes shift as you pass, creating patterns in mid-air, some aligning, separating, suggesting multiple paths, each step deliberate, each movement part of the sequence. A low hum resonates from the walls, carrying tones that seem to respond to your movements, confirming alignment, warning of missteps, hinting at what lies ahead. You pause, observing the space, realizing that this world is vast, alive, layered, testing perception, patience, and insight. And as you continue forward, stepping carefully into the flowing corridor, the shapes, patterns, and symbols all guiding you, you sense that the forbidden door has not yet fully revealed its secret. The corridor opens into a vast chamber, wider and taller than any space you have crossed. Platforms of varying sizes float in irregular formations, some stationary, some moving slowly, some shifting unpredictably, demanding attention, timing, and balance. Suspended objects hover at different heights, cubes, spheres, rods, etched with symbols you have encountered before, some new, each one responding subtly to your approach. A faint vibration courses through the floor, pulsing in rhythm with your heartbeat, a sense of timing, a hidden signal guiding your steps. You move carefully from platform to platform, adjusting weight, observing patterns, testing interactions, the sequence of movements forming a rhythm you must follow. Along the edges of the chamber, shadowed figures appear, humanoid in form, yet their features are abstract, angular, almost mechanical. They observe silently, each movement deliberate. One figure gestures toward a cluster of suspended objects, suggesting a puzzle, a mechanism to interact with. You step closer, examining shapes, lines, and symbols, sliding panels, rotating pieces, aligning objects, according to the sequences traced through your journey. The vibrations confirm correct placement. A section of the chamber floor shifts, revealing a narrow passage, partially obscured, leading deeper into space beyond. The figures move slightly, guiding without speaking, their gestures subtle, almost imperceptible, yet impossible to ignore. You kneel at another puzzle, interlocking cubes, fragments from the previous chamber, sliding them carefully. Remember sequences, testing alignment. The cubes click, a faint light pulses, illuminating a set of floating walkways above, suggesting multiple routes, some safer, some riskier, each with symbols indicating alignment. You step onto one walkway, feeling it shift beneath weight, adjusting carefully, the suspended objects moving in response, revealing patterns, offering hints. Another mechanism waits, a pedestal with symbols that twist as you approach, the key fragments in your possession, reacting subtly, a low vibration, confirming partial alignment. You manipulate the pedestal, sliding, turning, arranging, aligning symbols with fragments collected along the journey. A section of the wall slides open, revealing another corridor. Light spills from this corridor, revealing new shapes, new symbols, objects floating as if alive, currents of air moving around them, responding to your presence. The shadowed figures step back, some receding, others hovering closer, still observing, almost like guardians or teachers, testing your perception and patience. You pause, realizing the space is alive. Each movement, each sequence matters. The world beyond the forbidden door is a living puzzle, a structure that responds to thought, awareness, and action. As you continue deeper, The chamber stretches beyond the edge of vision, shapes and platforms extending further, the suspended objects pulse in rhythm, the sequences growing more complex. And yet, with each step, each puzzle solved, each observation made, you feel a sense of progress, a connection to the world. The door beyond still waiting, still guarding. The corridor opens into a vast atrium, stretching higher than any ceiling you have seen. Suspended platforms float above an open expanse, some rotating slowly, some shifting in patterns you must anticipate. Figures appear among the platforms, humanoid in shape, but abstract. Elongated limbs, faces without clear features, movements precise, deliberate, observing, interacting. They do not speak, yet their gestures communicate intent, pointing, rotating objects, shifting symbols, inviting participation, testing perception. You step forward careful, every movement measured, aware that missteps may reset sequences or obscure clues. One figure moves closer, extending an angular arm toward a cluster of suspended objects, shapes you recognize from previous puzzles. You approach, arranging objects according to the sequence suggested by its gestures, cubes sliding into place, panels aligning, the vibration beneath your feet, confirming correct placement. Another figure shifts across the platforms, leaving trails of light in the air, guiding your eyes toward a mechanism, partially obscured, pedestal with interlocking symbols, waiting for interaction. You kneel at the pedestal, aligning pieces, sliding panels, arranging fragments collected throughout the journey. The figure watching silently, only the subtle shift of its posture, acknowledging each correct move. Section of the platform tilts, revealing a hidden passage. Corridors within corridors, some leading higher, some lower, all interwoven. The figures move in response, some signaling with gestures, pointing toward sequences, others retreating to observe, their movements forming patterns. You begin to recognize a language without words. You follow the guidance, stepping carefully, balancing across shifting platforms, interacting with suspended objects, arranging symbols, testing sequences, each success reinforcing the rhythm of the space. A figure hovers near a wall, tracing a pattern with its elongated fingers, shapes emerging from the wall, forming platforms, connecting areas previously unreachable. You step onto the newly formed platforms, navigating toward a higher section of the atrium, the light shifting, objects moving in anticipation. The figures begin to interact more directly, moving objects for you, testing your perception, adjusting sequences to test attention, patience, observation. You realize that this world communicates through action, gesture, and alignment. Understanding the inhabitants' intent is as critical as solving the puzzles. One figure descends to your level. A cube floats between you, hovering, waiting, its surface etched with new symbols, challenging, unfamiliar, yet connected to everything you have learned. Manipulate the cube, rotating, sliding, arranging. The vibration beneath confirms alignment. The figure steps back, a new sequence unlocked, pathways forming in the atrium. Objects float from the walls, assembling bridges, walkways, connecting platforms, forming a path that leads deeper toward the heart of the space beyond the door. You step forward carefully, observing every movement, every shift in symbols, every gesture from the inhabitants, aware that this layer of the world tests more than memory. It tests intuition, awareness, perception, and patience. And as you move through the atrium, guided by gestures, following patterns in space, the suspended platforms and symbols arranging themselves in response, the sense of anticipation builds, the forbidden door's full secret still waiting. You step into a chamber, unlike any space you have seen. The walls curve outward, covered in panels and symbols, some glowing faintly, others shifting unpredictably. Platforms of varying shapes float at multiple heights. Narrow walkways connect them, some tilting, moving in patterns. Figures emerge from the shadows, elongated limbs, abstract features, gestures precise, directing attention to clusters of suspended objects. You notice multiple sequences unfolding simultaneously, objects that must be aligned, symbols that must be traced, patterns that must be matched, all at once. One figure moves beside you, its angular fingers tracing shapes in the air, guiding the motion of a floating cube, yet leaving gaps for observation and choice. You step carefully across a narrow walkway, adjusting weight toward a cluster of symbols, sliding, turning, aligning pieces according to sequences you have memorized, the floor beneath vibrating in response. Another figure moves above you, hovering, manipulating objects out of reach, forming connections between platforms, creating pathways previously inaccessible. You follow its gestures, moving quickly but carefully, aligning symbols on the floating platforms, arranging fragments in precise order, observing changes, anticipating the next move. A series of small pedestals rise from the floor, each holding a fragment, a puzzle, a mechanism, demanding attention and coordination. You kneel, interacting with one, while monitoring the others, sliding pieces, rotating symbols, connecting shapes, the space responding in rhythm, a living puzzle unfolding. The figures move around the chamber, some signaling sequences, some shifting objects, their gestures forming a non-verbal conversation, testing your awareness and intuition. Above you, light shifts and curves, revealing hidden platforms, pathways urging, objects floating into alignment, forming patterns that hint at the larger design of this world. You step carefully from platform to platform, reaching a cluster of cubes suspended in midair, arranging, sliding, rotating, a delicate balance, the inhabitants observing, testing, approving. A pedestal at the center rises slowly, revealing a mechanism more complex than anything before, interlocking layers, symbols aligning only when multiple sequences are completed simultaneously. Adjust one layer, another responds. A vibration hums beneath your hands, the figures moving objects in response, the chamber alive, anticipating, responding. You take a deep breath, coordinating movements with objects and gestures, the rhythm of the space becoming clear, your perception sharpening, intuition guiding your hands. At last, the mechanism clicks into place, panels shift, a doorway emerges, a path leading deeper, the chamber's sequence is complete. The figures step back, their movements slowing, watching silently, signaling that you may proceed. Yet their presence still reminds you that observation is never complete. You step forward, following the newly revealed path, suspended platforms and symbols aligning as you move, the space bending subtly to accommodate the sequence you have completed. And as you leave the chamber behind, the complexity of the world becomes apparent, the inhabitants and their patterns forming a language you are only beginning to understand. Floating platforms drift in irregular patterns, some spinning slowly, others sliding along invisible tracks, creating shifting pathways you must anticipate. Suspended objects hover at different heights, cubes, rods, fragments etched with symbols you have encountered, some new, some rearranging themselves as you move. Figures emerge from the edges, humanoid, yet abstract. Limbs elongated, faces unreadable, gestures precise, guiding, testing, observing. You step carefully, balancing across a narrow walkway, adjusting weight, reaching toward a cluster of suspended symbols, aligning, sliding, rotating, the space responding to your actions. Above you, a series of platforms rises, higher than the previous chambers, some interconnected, some isolated, suggesting multiple routes forward, each requiring attention and timing. Objects float between the platforms, their arrangement changing based on your position, gestures from the inhabitants indicating sequences, warning against misalignment. You kneel at a pedestal, a puzzle requiring multiple fragments. Symbols must align across layers. The vibration beneath your hands confirming correct placement. A figure moves silently beside you, pointing toward another floating mechanism. Angular gestures guiding your attention, your movements coordinating with theirs. You slide panels, rotate shapes, align sequences, the space around you pulsing, objects shifting, platforms adjusting, forming a rhythm of interaction. Another pedestal rises from the floor, revealing a mechanism more complex than before. Interlocking layers, requiring simultaneous alignment across multiple points. You step onto an adjacent platform, balancing carefully, sliding a panel into place, rotating symbols, feeling the space respond. The vibrations confirming partial success. Figures move among the platforms, adjusting objects, their gestures, communicating timing, patterns, next steps. The world alive with interaction. A sequence completes. A section of platforms shifts, revealing a hidden corridor. A pathway leading deeper, the core secret, the door guards. Light spills from the corridor, illuminating symbols on the walls, suspended objects aligning, forming a pattern that suggests a larger design. You follow the path, stepping carefully, aware that each interaction, each observation, shapes the sequence of what comes next. The inhabitants moving in tandem, testing, observing, guiding. A faint resonance runs through the floor, your heartbeat syncing with it, the rhythm of the space, the movements, the sequences, becoming clearer, more intuitive. You step into the central chamber, the space unlike any you have encountered. The ceiling stretches impossibly high, shapes twisting along its surface, symbols etched across vast expanses, some moving, others fixed. Platforms float in concentric circles around a central pedestal, each layer higher than the last, shifting slowly, requiring precise steps, careful timing. Suspended objects hover between the platform's cubes, rods, fragments, each etched with sequences you have learned, each responding subtly to your presence. Figures emerge, more numerous now, moving among the platforms, gestures deliberate, guiding sequences, observing reactions, testing awareness. You step onto the first platform, adjusting weight, reaching toward a cluster of floating symbols, arranging, sliding, rotating, each movement influencing other objects. Above, a layer of platforms shifts. Sequences must align simultaneously across multiple heights, the figures signaling through gestures, the space alive, testing every observation and decision. A pedestal rises in the center, its mechanism unlike any before. Multiple interlocking layers, symbols spanning across fragments, cubes, suspended objects, requiring coordination, timing, and intuition. You kneel, sliding pieces, rotating shapes, arranging symbols in precise order, feeling the vibration resonate through the floor, confirming partial alignment. Figures move among the platforms, adjusting objects, signaling sequences, their movements forming a language without words, requiring you to anticipate intent, to respond intuitively. The central mechanism clicks place, a section of the chamber shifts, revealing the final layer, a doorway suspended above, glowing with light, etched with symbols. The ultimate threshold, you step onto a moving platform, reaching toward the suspended doorway, fragments in hand, arranging, sliding, aligning, each sequence completing another, the space responding, pulsing, the figures pause, observing, no gestures now, the space itself waiting for your final alignment. You position the last fragment, the doorway glows brighter, panels shift, symbols connecting, revealing the final passage, the forbidden door's secret, now within reach. A current of air moves through the chamber, carrying the sense of anticipation, the culmination of every puzzle, every sequence, every interaction. You step toward the suspended doorway, aware that the culmination of the journey is here, the figures watching, the space acknowledging, waiting. You step through the threshold, the suspended doorway solidifying behind you, the space beyond stretches wide, impossible to measure, shapes and symbols aligning in ways that feel familiar, yet entirely new. A calm stillness fills the air, the figures you encountered now observing from the edges, motionless, their presence guiding without interference. Platforms float steadily beneath your feet, each step deliberate, leading toward the center of this new expanse. A pedestal rises slowly before you, simple, unadorned, yet emanating a sense of importance. You place the fragments you have carried along your journey, one by one, each fitting naturally, the mechanism responding, symbols connecting, completing the sequence. A gentle vibration pulses through the space, the alignment complete, the hidden logic of the forbidden door revealed. Though not in words, only in perception, in patterns, in movement. Figures shift slightly, a final acknowledgement, then recede into the distance, leaving you alone, yet accompanied by the resonance of the space itself. You step forward, observing the infinite expanse, shapes and platforms stretching beyond sight, symbols flowing in rhythmic patterns, a world alive with structure and mystery. The doorway through which you entered remains, now faint, a reminder of the journey, of the puzzles, sequences, and interactions led you here. You pause at the center, breathing, feeling the weight of every choice, every movement, every sequence, every observation, the culmination of the journey beneath your feet. A sense of completion settles, yet the space suggests more beyond the edge of sight, paths that could continue, challenges that could arise, possibilities that remain infinite. You take a slow step, the light shifting around you, the suspended shapes forming new patterns, a rhythm that invites quiet observation, reflection, understanding, and as you linger, the space folding gently around the edges of perception. You realize the journey is both complete and yet only one part of a larger world, waiting to be explored again. The chamber breathes with life, the forbidden door's secret fulfilled, yet the expanse beyond hints stories untold, puzzles unsolved, sequences untraced. You stand quietly, absorbing the stillness, the structure, the resonance of the space, allowing the mind to rest, letting the body relax, and as your awareness drifts, the world beyond remains alive, without hurry, stretching infinitely, a place where curiosity can rest, yet imagination can wander. The journey concludes, yet the expanse of the forbidden door lingers, a gentle invitation to return in thought, or perhaps in another time.